Good day, and welcome to Lesson 22 in our study of the book of Daniel, and hopefully we'll get some further along in chapter 11, probably to the end. This is a very difficult sort of section to really understand and interpret, so I'm going to go back again a little bit to verse 17 and start there, where the wars between the kings of the north, the Antiochus, and the kings of the south, the Ptolemies, were raging off and on for centuries and for many years. Anyway, Antiochus III was trying to arrange a union or an alliance with Egypt. And the prophecy in Daniel, which was written about 536 BC, talks about this time, which was 200 or 300 years in the future. So the prophecy reads that he shall set his face to enter with the strength of his whole kingdom, and upright ones with him. Thus shall he do. And he shall give him the daughter of women to destroy it, but she shall not stand with him or before him. So in later years, Antiochus III did send his daughter Cleopatra to marry the king of the south, Ptolemy, in Egypt. Now his daughter was only about 9 or 10 at the time, and the king of Egypt was really only about 7. So this was an arranged marriage to try and forge a union between Egypt and Syria. However, it says, she shall not stand with him, or before him. And what happened was, this arranged marriage between Antiochus's daughter and the Egyptian king, she sided with the king and turned against her father. And as a result, he turned in rage towards Egypt, but was defeated because the Roman army was now becoming stronger. And as a result of that, Antiochus ended up, as it says in the prophecy, he turned his face to the coastlands and shall take many, but a ruler shall bring the reproach against them to an end. And with the reproach removed he shall turn back on him. Then he shall turn his face towards the fortress of his own land, but he shall stumble and fall and not be found. Antiochus III did ravage or try to ravage the coastland of Egypt and the coast of the Mediterranean, but was not really successful, and as a result turned back to his own land. It is said that he tried to raid the treasures of the temple of Jupiter in his own land, but the people of the land turned against him at long last and killed him, and he was not found. Now it says in verse 20, there shall arise in his place one who imposes taxes on the glorious kingdom, but within a few days he shall be destroyed. In history, it shows that after the death of Antiochus III, his son, Seleucus IV, came to power. But he had all these taxes he had to pay now because of his father's wars, and because now the Romans were demanding taxes from him as well. He tried to raid the temple in Jerusalem. And it said that the people there turned against him. And in fact, it is said his own tax collector turned against him. And he himself was murdered. He only lasted a very short time in power. Then the prophecy said, in his place shall arise a vile person to whom they will not give the honor of royalty, but he shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue. And history shows that after the death of Seleucus IV, Antiochus IV came into power. Now he was a brother of Seleucus, but was not really in line for the throne. But because of his manipulation and his intrigue with other people and his apparent alliances with other people, he took over power of the throne and became king, not because he was owed it, not because he was in honor of it, but because he came in not by warfare, but by intrigue.
So this exactly fulfilled the prophecy. And it says, with the force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him, and broken also the prince of the covenant. And after the league is made with him, he shall act deceitfully, but he shall come up and become strong with a small number of people. He shall enter peaceably, even into the richest places of the province, and he shall do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. He shall disperse among them the plunder, spoil, and riches, and he shall devise his plans against the strongholds, but only for a time. Antiochus IV became a very wily and strong person, but he also was one of the most cruel people in ever to be in history. And what he did was make an alliance with the kings of Egypt, make an alliance which was apparently to secure peace between the two of them. And he came up with a small number of people and entered peaceably and into the province. And what he did was take some of the riches that he had and distribute it among the people, distribute it among the elders and among the people of his dominion in a way that was not done before, but it made some stronger alliances for himself. He therefore dispersed among them the plunder, spoil, and riches, and he shall devise his plans against the strongholds, but only for a time. This only lasted for a very short time. Then he stirred his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army, and the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. And as a result, there was more warfare between the two of them. And as a result of that, there was more distress, more anguish, and more bloodshed than had been previously. But he did not stand. For what happened was the Romans and the Egyptians took up plans, and they ended up causing a defeat of Antiochus IV and drove him back towards his own land. And in the way of his retreat was, of course, Jerusalem and Judea. So what these kings did that made this pact in history between Antiochus IV and the king of Egypt, they both made this peace treaty, but acted dishonorably, as it says in the prophecy. They shall speak lies at the same table, not prosper, for the end will still be at the appointed time. While returning to his land with great riches, his heart shall be moved against the holy covenant, so that he shall do damage and return to his own land. The way back, Antiochus IV turned towards Jerusalem. And as this goes on, it really starts to resemble what the Antichrist will do. And this is revealed in the book of Revelation. So Antiochus IV is in effect an early rendition of what the Antichrist is in the book of Revelation. It says, ships from Cyprus shall come against him, therefore he shall be grieved and return enraged against the holy covenant. Antiochus IV was not able to do what he wanted to do, and therefore in history it shows that the Romans and the Cypriots came against him and drove him towards back into his own land. And he returned and showed regard for those who forsake the holy covenant, and forces shall be mustered by him. They shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Antiochus IV took out his rage and his revenge on the people of Jerusalem and in the holy sanctuary. So, when he returned from Egypt, he vented his anger against Jerusalem. And he sold the office of the high priest and persecuted the Jewish people to conform to the Greek culture. And this is what it says: the forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Antiochus IV took away the daily sacrifices and placed there the abomination of desolation. He defiled the temple in Jerusalem. Antiochus defiled the temple in Jerusalem, as it is said here in the prophecies. He tried to convince the people to conform to Greek culture. He placed a statue of Zeus in the Holy of Holies. He sacrificed a pig on the altar, on the Jewish altar, and caused the whole place to be an abomination to the Jewish people. So it says in the prophecy, he will place there the abomination of desolation. Those who do wickedly against the covenant he shall corrupt with flattery. Many of the Jewish people sort of went along with this because in the time of Antiochus they accepted, because Antiochus bribed them and flattered them, even though at the same time he murdered them by the hundreds of thousands. But then it says, but the people who know their God shall be strong. And the history shows us that there was one group of people who rebelled against Antiochus. And when the emissary of the king was sent to these people to ask them and to get them to conform to the new ways of doing things, to the new God, and to bow toward Zeus, they ended up murdering the emissary and heading to the hills. These became known as the Maccabees. And their story is told in 1st and 2nd Maccabees, two books which are not in our Bible, which are in the apocryphal books and in the Roman Catholic Bible. These people led the revolt, which essentially led to the overthrow of Antiochus. And it said, these people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. The prophecy said this, and this is exactly what the Maccabees did. And those are the peoples who understand shall instruct many. But many people shall fall by the sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. And it is said that 80 to 100,000 Jewish people were murdered by the Antiochus and by his forces before the revolt was successful. Now those who fail, they shall be aided with a little help, but many shall join with him by intrigue. And many of the Jewish people did join Antiochus as he went through his dastardly deeds. They became turncoats. They joined up with him against their own religion and their own people. Some of those of understanding shall fall or refuse them, purify them, and make them white until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. This refers to the fact that this whole prophecy has both a meaning as is being fulfilled in the future by Antiochus, and also in the far future by a man we will call Antichrist. And then it says the king will do according to his own. The king wants to do according to whatever he wants to do himself. Exalt and magnify himself above every god, shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the wrath has been accomplished, for what has been determined shall be done. This again refers apparently to the Antichrist. Antiochus did this to the Jewish people. He placed himself above all other gods. He placed a god of the Greeks in the Jewish temple. He defiled the temple. He had no respect for what the Jewish people believed. And this also is respected in what is said about Antichrist in the book of Revelation. He shall regard neither the God of his fathers nor the desire of women, the God of his fathers, Yahweh, or the desire of women, the result of women's birth, Christ. Nor shall he regard any God, he shall exalt himself above them all. But in their place he shall honor a God of fortresses, a God which his fathers did not know he shall honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and pleasant things, with the things of the world, and with power and the wealth of warfare. He shall act against the strongest fortresses with a foreign god, and which he shall acknowledge and advance to its glory. He shall cause them to rule over many and divide the land for gain. And what he is saying is that this new god, this Antichrist, or as did Antiochus try to do, he was represented by and was for the God of war, the God of power, the God of riches, the God of pleasantry. And he shall act with a foreign God, which he shall acknowledge and advance to glory, advance the glory of the God of power, the God of prestige, the God of pleasure. And he shall cause him to rule over many and divide the land for gain. And here we come again to the prophecy about the end times. At the time of the end, the king of the south shall attack Jerusalem, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. This is talking about a large battle which is going to take place at the end of the age. He shall also enter the glorious land, which is really Jerusalem, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape from his hand, Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. He shall stretch out his hand against the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. He shall have power over the treasures of gold and silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt. Also the Libyans and Ethiopians shall follow at his heels. But news from the east and the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go out with great fury to destroy and annihilate many. He shall plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to the end, and no one will help him. This refers to the Antichrist at the end, who will have massive power, massive ability and wealth, because he pleasures the gods of power and of wealth, who will have his center at that time in Jerusalem. But he's talking about the other areas coming against him, eventually coming against him, and this large battle which will ensue and take place. And then there will be a destruction, because God himself will intervene. He shall plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain, the holy mountain which is in Jerusalem. He shall come to his end, and no one will help him. A lot of this is yet to come in the future, according to the prophecies. But the prophecies which have been related to the actual kings which followed after the king of Persia, after Cyrus and Darius, have been shown to come true right down the line. And all the prophecies which related to the kings of the north, or of Syria, Antiochus, and the kings of the south, the Ptolemies, have been shown to come true. But there is one part yet which is yet to come. This is what the prophecy says. And of course we don't know exactly how that's going to work out, but if the prophecies that have been previously stated have come true, then we have to assume that this last one will come true as well, even though the actual details are not really known to us. This is the prophecy of Daniel, which has been touted throughout the ages. It's a prophecy in the book of Daniel which was given to Alexander and made him actually save and secure the Jewish state at that time, the high priest, and the Jewish sacrifices and the Jewish religion. Because when Alexander was given this book of Daniel, he saw himself in it, and therefore did not do any harm to the Jewish people. The other people who came after Alexander, after the division of his kingdom into the north and the south, they also were seen in the prophecies and followed the prophecies as they had been said before. And there was 400 years between some of these events happening and when they were prophesied by Daniel. The last one, of course, is yet to come. And therefore it's somewhat vague. We can't know for sure, but there's going to be one person who's going to be set up as a king over a large area, if not the whole world, but will eventually be defeated by God himself. And this is the end of chapter 11, and we're going to get into chapter 12, prophecy in the end time, next time. This will pretty well end the book of Daniel. This last part is more complicated and a little harder to get through than the first part, but at least I hope it gives some idea of what these prophecies were about. So join me next week as we probably finish the book of Daniel. If not, it'll be the beginning of the end of the book of Daniel, and then we'll start another book called Thessalonians. But join me next week as we finish up, and hopefully we will get into chapter 12 and hopefully finish the book of Daniel next week. So I hope this wasn't too confusing, but thanks again for watching, and I hope you'll join me next week. Bye for now.